we'll kick it off. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We know it's been a challenging time, and many of you have been impacted by windstorms, fire conditions, COVID, and more, and so it's good to see you join us. I'm Scott Brooker, the Interim Vice President of Destination Development at Travel Oregon. And as you may have been before, you're logged into Travel Oregon's Tour Operators, Guides, and Outfitters online forum. Today, we're going to be talking about financial resources, funding, and tips. These have been really great, intimate sessions where people have had a chance to hear from experts and then have discussions. So we are planning to have an interactive program and really urge you not only to hear the excellent information that's available, but to interface with each other, use the chat function, introduce yourself, post questions, or share your insights. And it's probably, you have the opportunity to speak at any time, so probably best if you stay on mute until there are the opportunities for breakouts, which we'll do up front and later in the program. So I want to remind you all that Travel Oregon is here to serve you all and invest in the tour operator, guide, and outfitting community. And let's go to the next slide, if that's okay. We're invested deeply into strong and sustainable communities, and we really believe that tour operators, guides, and outfitters, the community is critical to businesses helping to achieve Travel Oregon's vision and support visitors and communities to experience Oregon's awesome wonders and experiences. So we're really glad to be providing you programming, and we intend to continue to do so after these sessions are over as well. Today's forum is the last in a series of 4 forums that we've offered starting in August and into October. As you can see, these are the 3 that we've had previously, and all of our programming as well as today's programming will be available on our YouTube channel, which you can find from, as you'll see, the link in your chat window right now. So we've had a lot of people attend these and a lot of people view them afterwards and come back. And just to clarify the intended outcomes of this series, because I always like to start with outcomes, we are intending to provide technical guidance and support to tour operators, guides, and outfitting businesses to safely operate during COVID. We want to share and hear about business experiences while seeking input from industry peers, and meet and network with industry peers to support a more collaborative industry in Oregon. And again, these are one of the ways that we've done this programming, and we do intend to continue this work into the future. With that, I'd like to introduce the Travel Oregon team who's been really driving this work. Behind the scenes, we have Travel Oregon's Jordan McCauley, who's our Destination Development Coordinator and serving as today's technician. So if you have any questions around technical issues, feel free to post those comments to the chat, and she will help to solve those problems. And she'll also be breaking us into breakout rooms if we do that, or other kinds of things related to our technical side. And then in the front of the house, Melanie Fisher of Consulting Sensei, who's been helping us organize these forums and will serve as today's moderator. But before I pass it up to Melanie, we are going to, let's see, how many folks do we have? Yeah, we're going to break out into 2 breakout groups, have a chance to meet each other. We're going to post what are questions that we're hoping that you can share, but an opportunity to just network and engage with each other and your industry peers. Take about 1 minute each to introduce yourself and answer the question that will be posted in the chat now. And then if there's any additional remaining time after, you go around and introduce yourselves, and you can build on any of the thoughts, commentary, or connections you've heard.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was a great opportunity to meet the people in my group, and hopefully the same for you all to, just hear how everyone is doing. And we will have another opportunity for us all to talk again towards the end of today's online forum after our main presentation. So definitely do stay with us. I also just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today to participate in our forum focusing on current financial resources, funding updates, and long-term financial tips. We hope today's information will be extremely useful for you and your business, including the outcomes that you see on the screen. Discover what Oregon Small Business Development Center Network has available for tour operators and what loans and grants are still available from the government. Learn updates about current funding programs and what other opportunities are out there, and also gain knowledgeable long-term financial ideas to keep your business afloat through the upcoming off-season and long-term. Yes, so today our schedule is coming up next will be a presentation about the financial resources funding updates and long-term financial tips with Noah Brockman and Eric Lind, both from the Oregon Small Business Development Program. And we will have a second breakout group and also a group discussion to discuss all of your businesses and how to integrate the ideas that you've learned today. And so I would like to introduce our speakers, starting with Noah Brockman. He is based in Portland, and Noah enjoys hiking and camping when he's not leading Oregon Small Business Development's Access team. Noah has worked with hundreds of small business owners on business planning and capitalization, so we look forward to hearing the details Noah has to share with us. And then we also have Eric Lind joining us from Eugene, and Eric's favorite outdoor sport is drinking beer, that is after skiing, hiking, and kayaking. Eric also specializes in helping small business owners with business planning, developing financial strategies, and understanding funding as an advisor with Oregon's Network Capital Access team. So Eric as well will share his expertise on today's subject, and once their presentation is finished, there'll be time to answer your questions. So definitely, please be thinking if you're needing more details on anything on a question. And what you can actually do on the bottom of your screen, click on the chat option and share your question there. So the chat button is on the bottom when you scroll over your mouse. I know some people joining us aren't on Zoom calls often, so you're more than welcome now to just kind of play around and see where that is. And with that said, I am going to release my screen to Noah and Eric. So it's all yours, guys.
Oops, unmuted now. Thanks so much. Glad to be here with you all as we share our screen with you. Hopefully you can see it now. So I'm Noah Brockman. I lead the Oregon SBDC Network's Capital Access team. We are a group of 10 or so specialty SBDC business advisors around the state, and we advise our clients statewide on financing, aka funding or access to capital. So we were asked to talk about financial resources, current and some future tips on financial wellness for the long term. So we're going to get into that. I was today looking at some stats at US Travel, and for some of you, it sounds like, you know, the national stats may be somewhat similar to what you've experienced. Some of those that we heard from in the breakouts are doing better than others. Hopefully, these national numbers don't totally reflect what we're seeing in Oregon. So what can SBDCs do for you? The small business development centers, I'm just going to put this out big picture to lay some foundation. So we have 19 centers around the state. We're geographically located and hosted by mostly community colleges, in some cases universities around the state. We do, if you boil it all down to the two main things we do no-cost business advising, and we offer a whole host of entrepreneurial training programs on a range of different topics. And because we do have so many centers around the state that all serve different regional needs and constituencies, so those training programs really vary from area to area. And because of COVID-19, we're now all online. So what that means is you can take advantage of these training programs, whether you're in Eastern Oregon, down in Southern Oregon, or anywhere else statewide. So that's good news for you. I did mention that Eric and I are part of the Capital Access team. So we actually have some regional teams around the state. You can see how we're color coded. So what that means is, depending on what part of the state you're in, there's probably a Capital Access team member nearby that can work with you if you're looking or wanting to explore funding options for your business based on, how your business has been impacted either by the pandemic or the wildfires. So speaking of financial resources and what you can do, we've got a couple slides on resources, so let's just dive into those. So the first thing we did in response to the pandemic was we put up a page at a page we manage, bizcentercat.org. And on this site, we started a page that essentially is just dedicated to capital access resources. So if you were to go to the CAP team's website here at bizcentercat.org and click on wildfire and pandemic related funding, we're updating these resources on the daily. And what you can usually see when the site is loading is you can typically see national, statewide, and regional sources, there we go, of funding. So today we added under the statewide tab, there's another round of grant funding, the Emergency Small Business Assistance Fund, administered through Business Oregon and many local regional providers. So, if you were to click through to that, it would take you not there. Where would it take you? Well, it would take you to the Business Oregon website, which I can't quite reach right now. So we're going to go back to the slides. Here we go. All right, so that's the most recent small business assistance grant. I can just tell you that those grants are up to $50,000, and they're also open to folks who have small businesses in Oregon who have received less than $100,000 in grants already, including grants from the federal government as well as the state. So you might check out that resource here at the Business Oregon Coronavirus page. Eric, you want to talk about some pandemic funding that folks might still have access to?
Sure. On the EIDL, which stands for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that is still open. All those funds haven't been used, and that is one where primarily based on your 2019 tax return. If you're self-employed or as an employer, you can usually get about 6 months worth of operating expenses. That's a good program. The term on it's 15 or 30 years, which is very generous. Interest rate is 3.75. That's still available. The PPP, what does that stand for? Payroll Protection Plan, I think, program. That's closed. I think that's shut August 8th. And businesses right now and lenders are in the process of the PPP forgiveness application. There is still money, I believe, available for the personal protection equipment. And then Noah kind of covered, local grants that are available. And again, the website he was just on and showed national, regional, and state. Yep, there it is.
So if you go to the regional drop down, you can actually just, if you Control F, put in your city, your county, you might find something near to you. And as I said, we're adding to this every day. So it's something to check back into, as well as the Business Oregon site, which I can actually get to now. The Small Business Navigator. Okay.
And part of that kind of ties in a little bit. I'll skip by the banker part, the regional. Contact city, county, in your area, economic development agencies, especially right now regarding the wildfire funding. And there's some, and help me, Noah, we learned about it about a week ago. I think Lincoln City had one, an art fund, I believe, that was available for artists. So there are, you know, a myriad of grants and programs that pop up. Some of them, unfortunately, come up pretty quick, and maybe there's not enough funding provided, and so they are out of funds quickly, but they kind of come and go. Another thing, I just, and I can probably post it in the chat in a little bit. I just read it in the paper today. The Oregon trial lawyers have formed a group, or well, maybe not formed a group, anyway, support group for resources. They have a hotline now and will provide pro bono resources for businesses and individuals that need help with their insurance claims with the wildfires. So and it can be kind of overwhelming. There are a lot of different resources available. Do you want me to talk about the banker part?
Well, you might as well. Eric comes from a long history of small business banking, which is, he adds a lot to our team with that history. You want to just talk about negotiating with landlords and checking in with your banker?
Right, and when the COVID hit and with the wildfires, although some of you may not have a landlord, you might be operating out of your home or anyway, hopefully you have a place. And, you know, the first thing is, you know, contact your landlord, let them know what's going on, you know, whether you they're not going to be able to pay your rent or lease, or, you know, just have a dialogue, an honest, open dialogue. Same thing with your banker. If you have a loan with a bank or a credit union, the same thing when COVID started and with the wildfires, just if you haven't already, talk to them, be upfront with them. You know, bankers don't like to hear bad news. However, you got to deal with it. And, you know, this is a lot different than for those of you who were around in 2008 and 9 with the recession, Great Recession there. Banks didn't do a very good job. And this time, from my former colleagues and everything, through the COVID, and they're willing to listen and, you know, help out, defer loan payments and that type of thing. So don't overlook those things in negotiating or just you know, working out some type of a thing that hopefully works for you and works for your bank or your landlord.
And let's also talk about some wildfire disaster assistance funding. So for those of you who may have applied to the pandemic-related EIDL loan with SBA, those EIDL loans were actually developed and designed for you know, natural disasters like wildfires and hurricanes. So after Oregon experienced our wildfires this summer, there was a national disaster, a statewide disaster declaration made by the president, by our governor, which enabled SBA to roll out in Oregon a disaster declaration that triggered the SBA EIDL for wildfires. So for those who were businesses that were actually in counties where there were wildfires or contiguous counties next door, and you were impacted either if your business had sustained physical damage, there's actually a physical damage disaster loan for through SBA. If you just had to shut down, the idle loan is available for businesses that didn't necessarily sustain physical damage, but economic damage. USDA has some really interesting programs. I'm not sure, it might relate to some of you on this call. We have these listed in the funding sources on the bizcentercat.org website, but here's a few just to give you a sense of how specialized some of the U.S. Department of Agriculture grant programs are. So if you have forest land that was damaged by wildfire, they have a forest restoration grant program. If you had, let's say, like a watershed in your area that was damaged by wildfire, they have a grant for watershed protection and restoration. Or, if you had, let's say you were doing farm tours and you had farmland or rangeland, and your rangeland was burned, they have a livestock forage disaster program grant. So it's really interesting, the opportunities that are out there, but finding the right fit is sometimes tricky if you just don't know about it. So that's where we try and help folks. And today I had an opportunity to just check in briefly with Michelle Woodard with Travel Oregon, who manages their grants. And Travel Oregon has a grants page. I'm sharing my screen to it right now. And there's Michelle. She said that, they do have funding this fiscal year for grants. They haven't rolled out the next grant program yet, so they're still kind of thinking that through. But you might want to go to this page and sign up for email updates to stay informed on that. And then U.S. Travel has some CARES Act relief resources too on their website. Link below. So let's talk about long-term financial tips. Eric, do you want to kick us off here?
Okay, there's quite a bit to absorb. Running a worst-case cash flow projection, especially if you are on the SBA with the wildfires, their loan programs, they aren't grants, so they need to be repaid. And it can be helpful to run several scenarios on your revenues and expenses for the next year, just to see what you can afford, or hopefully you don't have to lay anybody off, or maybe cutting expenses kind of gets into a little bit down below, negotiating maybe some different vendor terms, for supplies or food or fuel or whatever it is. But it can kind of, and we have some tools that we can share with you. You can contact Noah or myself. These cash flow things, we can walk you through it just to kind of show what your cash needs are going to be month by month over the next year or 18 months, whatever time period you want.
Yeah, and it's really, I was just going to say, Eric, it's really all about the cash flow, isn't it? And finding those working capital, those sources of working capital these days.
Well, it is. And, as a banker, not to go that direction, but that's, you're looking for collateral, but you're looking for cash flow. And, it may even be the case with a lot of businesses right now who actually are, they're actually having to expand, and maybe not people that are on this call right now. And as a banker and as a business operator, you're watching your cash flow because you can actually expand too quickly and not have access to enough cash. So, kind of gets into the next line, is managing accounts receivable, or how you bill people, invoice people, how you receive your funds. And again, as Noah talked before, it's part of what we do as advisors, is work with businesses to better understand their cash flow, their financials, their business, help them any way we can. If a business has access to a line of credit, you could tap that. Again, grants. It's just there are, especially as your tour operators, you've been through it, many of you, many years. Is your off season, you've got to be, prepared for this, and this could be a little bit worse just because coming through the COVID and then into the wildfires. But that cash has to come from someplace, and again, getting back to the cash flow projections can show you what that cash need's going to be, and then figure out where it's going to come from.
And kind of hearkening back to 2010 when we had the most recent economic downturn, what we saw at the small business development centers from our clients was that one of the first things they started doing was cutting their overhead, laying people off, renegotiating their leases, trying to extend out or push out their vendor terms. And then, they started having to, dig around in the couch cushions for additional owner equity to inject into the business to keep it going, to pay the lease, to pay the, whatever the overhead looks like in your business. In some cases, we saw people selling off inventory that they didn't need, or other business assets to kind of come up with additional capital, working capital. And, back then I remember working with folks who started looking at, other sources of capital, what they had. And, it's a delicate matter, but in some scenarios, I remember folks looking at home equity lines of credit, which is a pretty tough thing to look at as a homeowner, and nothing to rush into by any means. We also saw people subleasing space that they didn't quite need at that time, and a lot of folks now that we've spoken with over the last several months have done really work to pivot their business model to if they can, as best they can, to make it work with today's market environment. Haven't seen too many folks get into state or federal contract business opportunities, but there definitely are, those out there for folks. You just kind of have to reinvent the business model sometimes to see how it might fit.
Yeah, one thing I might interject, Noah, if we have time, Melanie, is, having been from the banking community, if a business has losses, now is not a very good time to approach a bank for a loan. And, those of you that have loans with a bank or a credit union business loan, hopefully what's happened, you've developed a relationship. And I remember when I started banking a long time ago, a business real strong. They said, so let me get this straight, Eric. So I'm real strong right now and I don't need a loan, but I can get it. But then when I'm weak and, I've come to you because I've been losing money for a year or two, I'm not going to be able to get it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to that. And so, part of, depending on how everybody comes through this, I'm not telling people to go borrow money, but try and develop if you haven't in the past, a relationship with a bank or a credit union, a commercial business loan officer. And because when we made loans to businesses, it truly was a partnership. And I always want to, as a commercial lender, you want to understand the business, what was good, what the issues were and where they were going. It's actually fascinating to do that. And each year you would, not all the time, because there are different types of loans, business would have to submit their personal tax returns and business returns. And a lot of business owners don't like doing that, but you look at them, especially if there's a term loan or, a business wants to renew their line of credit. But it's that discussion you have between you as a business owner in the banker, so they again understand what you're doing, what happened, and where you're going. And it can be really important in times like this. And if you are looking, once we come out of this the other side, looking for a lender, the big banks, I don't want to slam them. They're real good. They tend to have matrix-driven decisions, credit score, that type of thing. It's hard to talk to people. Probably you want to look for a community-based lender or a credit union where you can actually talk to somebody, and if there maybe is a lack of collateral or some other issues, there's some programs out there with SBA, their 7A program. They have an Express. And sorry to hit you with all this all the time, or maybe a USDA. There are other programs that you might be looking at to, for your community bank or credit union to offer to kind of help mitigate some maybe issues for lack of collateral, or maybe looking at some projection-based revenue figures. So I just wanted to get that in there.
So we've thrown a lot at you in the last 21 minutes. If you're wondering, gosh, I might want to talk to somebody about some of this stuff, this is the process SBDC Capital Access Advisors take our clients through under normal conditions. But essentially it comes down to talking through a finance strategy, helping you figure out what documentation you might need for whatever that funding is, giving you ideas and suggestions and sometimes introductions to different funders or funding programs, and how to find us. So if you're just thinking, I could really just start with some no-cost business advising in my region, then you just go to OregonSBDC.org and get started there. Or if you want to reach us directly at the Capital Access team, you could just go to bizcentercat.org or check out our page with funding sources by national, statewide, and regional. And finally, here's the Oregon SBDC Network's website, where you go to sign up, and you just put in find the center near you with your zip code, and hopefully it'll work better than mine is. Wouldn't you know it?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm glad you're sharing this, because all the information is a lot. So just knowing, like the spreadsheet you just showed with the flow, people aren't going to be doing that on their own, that you'll be walking them through the steps. So I'm glad you're sharing how to contact you guys.
Yeah, sometimes it's helpful to have a guide, for sure. I don't know, do we need to stop for questions here? Or I know it's time to go on to the next piece of today's.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to interject some questions, and so just share my screen back. Yeah, and I think, this is a subject that is completely overwhelming to all of us in the tourism industry. I mean, we like to focus on taking people out in the woods or on boats or, going to museums, and it's hard to, at the same time, have a degree in all the financial stuff. So knowing how to contact you guys, and that there are people that specialize in holding our hands through all of this, is probably the most important point, on top of knowing there are a lot of grant opportunities out there, which is very helpful, because this is a hard year to be asking for more money. So with that said, I would like to read one question to you that definitely would love to get some advice on. So there's someone on the call today who has applied for a whole bunch of loans, the PUA, the EIDL, the LWA, and did not get any results. Although her company did receive the $2,700 grant from the SBDC in Seaside. But originally the PPP was not available to tour operators, and she's also applied for Travel Oregon grants, and also was denied. So do you have any advice? Because this is probably typical for a lot of small businesses across our state. Do you have any advice on what they should be doing now? Big question.
That's a tough question. Where is this business located?
On the coast.
Did you say Seaside?
Correct.
Yeah. Boy. Melanie, did you say they had applied for the EIDL? The PPP, it sounded didn't work.
Yes, and the person who wrote this, please feel free to speak up. I just didn't want to put you on the spot.
Okay, I just unmuted. So it's me. I'm at the coast with my little tour company, still in business, believe it or not. But I did apply for all of those. I just applied for the Lost Wage Assistance Program. And even though they got my application, I still have not heard anything back from them. The only money that I have received was the $2,700 grant that I got from the small business. And that was in July. And I mean, we had like a 5-day window to do that. So the second round of grant funding is available. Originally, it was not available to people that were prior recipients of that. But now they said, yes, that's okay. If you received a grant earlier, you're still eligible. So I just applied. They closed on October 16th for that. I applied for that. And since I am my only employee, I don't have anybody. I sold my other van. That was last year. I sold the van. I have one bus. So it's just me, and I sure could use some money. That's all there is to it. There's nothing coming in. So if you have any advice, that would be great.
Boy, that's a tough situation. And, with the state, the unemployment assistance, they're still trying to deal with self-employed people. And that's been a rugged deal. And people are in adjudication. And have you applied for the EIDL, the economic injury with the COVID?
Disaster relief. Yes. I've applied for everything.
Was that... What happened on that? Did you ever hear from SBA?
Did not. No.
Yeah, I tell you what, maybe the best thing to do is I'll put my contact information in there, and if you would call me tomorrow.
Okay, that'd be great.
And we can go through some things, and okay, let's do that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
One thing we've learned is that there really isn't a cookie cutter answer for all of this. Greg put in the chat that a good friend owns a small group tour, Operation Utah, and she said the PPP loan and other safety nets were contingent on her having a good relationship with her local regional bank. And she's worked with her local bank for 25 plus years and had no issues with support via the PPP or otherwise. So, it's just hard. Some things seem to work for some businesses and not for others. I do have another question, but I just want to put it out there in case anyone else who is on this call would like to ask Noah and Eric. You're welcome to just take your mic off mute or go ahead and put something in the chat. So, talking about having a relationship with a bank, some business owners in our industry definitely use banks, but don't have a relationship with their bank. And so, going around setting up a relationship with a banker, I'm assuming can be difficult. One thing that kind of came to mind here in Bend, our community is pretty connected. And so you might not have a relationship with your banker, but you might know someone through going on mountain bike rides, or, your kids are in the same class who is a banker. Is it okay to reach out to that person and have them connect you, whether it's at your bank or a different bank? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. Bankers love to connect with small business owners. So, a lot of times small business will talk to their peers and their colleagues and find out who they're banking with and what experiences they've had that are good or bad, and kind of do some informal close-in network polling that way. But bankers are usually pretty happy to connect and, learn more about your business.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think an important thing for people to know is that they're not alone in this situation. I mean, Lori, what you're talking about sounds very scary. It's the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night. So I'm excited to know that you can contact Eric and he can hopefully be supportive or put you in touch with the right people to be supportive in this situation. So everyone else who's on this call or is listening through YouTube, I really want to stress reaching out to the organization to have them help you as well or put you in touch with the right people to make sure that you can make it through these tough times and definitely not alone. So at this point, I think we have all our questions covered, unless anyone has anything else. So with that said, we can move on to our next section, which is just having a group discussion and letting everyone just kind of talk about their businesses. So we do have enough time to kind of get into some breakout groups and give you all just a couple minutes, but some time to discuss what's going on with you and everyone else. So we have enough to kind of take a couple minutes and just talk a little bit more about what resources that you have taken advantage this season and if it was useful, because it is really helpful for everyone to hear what's going on. And then if there are things that resonated with you today, to just share your ideas, what you are going to try and integrate into your plans for moving forward. So Jordan is sharing in the chat those things. So when we get into groups, we don't, as I said, have a lot of time. So maybe just go around the room and let everyone share your thoughts.
We have a small group who've come back to a group conversation. And Melanie, I'm not sure if you wanted to facilitate any additional conversations or questions. I know we just had started getting into a couple in our breakout, but having a group conversation I think is useful.
Definitely. Sorry, my computer is not liking me today. Yeah, I'm just curious if anyone has any last thoughts that they would want to share with the group, any aha moments, any details that are going to make a difference for you. Lori, I think you're on mute again, but.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now? Yes?
Yes.
One thing I did do after I realized I wasn't getting any help financially from anyone, I did go to my banker at my local credit union, who I know, and begged for a delay on my mortgage payment. So what they did was they suspended one mortgage payment for me and put it at the end of my mortgage, which really was a lifesaver because I didn't have any money to pay it anyway. So I was glad that happened. So hopefully I'll get back in the swing in the spring. And in the meantime, I'll go and reapply for other, I'd like a grant as opposed to a loan, but I will do what I need to do. But do check with the bank. That's really good advice because they know what's going on. Everyone's in the same boat, literally. And hopefully your bank that you're working with will be able to either, forgive a payment or suspend a payment and put it at the end of your note, which is always helpful. They only did one for me, but that's enough. So.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, this is definitely a time to get creative. So that is a helpful idea to be thinking about. Would anyone else like to share?
I had a question on this front. I know, again, I'm not sure if anyone even here has a storefront or not. So we're a pretty small group, but I know that there's been, basically moratoria on commercial evictions. At least I believe there are, or maybe that's just residential evictions. So but I'm not sure if there's any additional guidance or thinking on that as it relates to businesses that may have storefronts.
So I can speak to that. The governor's moratorium on evictions did relate to residential and commercial, but that period as it's called, the emergency period, covered period, was April 1st, ending September 30. So in Oregon, as of October 1, that did not continue on. However, the CDC at the federal level extended or interjected a moratorium on residential evictions through the end of this calendar year. But that's not the case for commercial. So that's my understanding.
Okay.
All right, well, that said, I'm gonna share with you all some next steps. So this conversation doesn't have to end, including people that are watching on YouTube. If you have access to the tour operator and guide outfitter base camp page, the conversation can continue then, whether it's today, tomorrow, or down the road, because this is an ongoing subject that does affect our community. So you can continue the conversation there if you have any additional questions or comments to share. Even Lori, success that you've had by working through some programs to let people know, you know, what is out there and is working. Also, for those of you that are interested in some one-on-one assistance for your business, either specific to running a tour company or marketing or other tour operator subjects, I am available to offer technical assistance. So you can see on the screen the Get Started at with the address, and also the email after today's forum will also include a link to fill out a form on the Travel Oregon site to connect us. And I can even connect you guys forward with the people who were talking today if that information would be more helpful. Also, do stay tuned for additional tour operator and guide outfitter programs for you to participate in. This is not the last one that will be offered. And to make sure that we're doing a good job and are putting out the right information for you, Jordan is going to put in the chat bar a forum survey from today's forum. And so we would like to hear your feedback. And so the link will be in the chat area. And at that, I am going to turn everything over to Scott. I want to thank you all for joining us today and look forward to future times to connect. All right, Scott.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks, everyone, for this small but mighty conversation. And yeah, please do utilize the technical assistance resources. We really want to try and provide direct support to you all. So let us know how we can help you. And I know that Noah and Eric are available as well. So you can reach out through us and we can direct you there. I also wanted to let you know that in addition to what Melanie shared, that Travel Oregon is in the process of developing our 21-25 strategic plan. We're aiming to be responsive to our ever dynamic and changing tourism economy, as well as helping set not only the direction for Travel Oregon, but also our 7 regional destination management organizations. So we will put another link in the chat about to take our industry survey. Please take an opportunity. It's about 15-minute survey, so it's substantial, but it will help us set the direction in these kinds of opportunities. If they're valuable to you or other kinds of resources that your business might need, it'll be helpful to hear from you from that survey. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone, thank our speakers, Eric and Noah, thank Jordan and Melanie and you all for attending. And again, if you want to rewatch this or any of the previous episodes, or trainings and engagement sessions, they're on our YouTube channel. So check those out. Have a great day. Hope you're all well and look forward to our next engagement. So take care.